All right, what is up, y'all? I'm excited to be here with you today because today we're going to talk about some fitness foundations and this idea that if you understand what things to prioritize, you only really need at most an hour of working out deliberately, and then you also want to sprinkle in some other activities throughout your day and throughout your life to make sure that you're getting the results that you want. So we all know that fitness is important, and the majority of us are trying to find a way to make that fit into our crazy, chaotic modern lifestyle. And for many of us, it's very challenging to find time to do it. And therefore, we want to make sure that what we're doing is the right thing and it's contributing to the results that we want. I think the problem is that most of us probably think exercise does more fat burning than it actually does, and therefore maybe consciously or unconsciously, if we believe this to some degree, we're probably focusing our efforts on the wrong things. And so we just want to make sure that we're focusing our efforts on the right things, and that's what this talk is all about today. So I go through phases of, it's almost like I go through themes with clients. You know, like last month's theme seemed to be a lot about supplementation, and then here recently I get a lot of questions about fitness and what the workout should look like and how often and things like that. So I had a client last week just asked me, hey, can you take a look at what I'm doing and tell me if I'm on track, and sent me his stuff. And basically he's doing what I think a lot of people do, which is go to the gym for an hour, you know, walk around, push some machines around, do some weights, and then spends a pretty significant amount of time doing cardio, you know, like some treadmill or Stairmaster or rowing or something along those lines. And even when I see people that are, you know, they get excited to start working out again, maybe they've been away from it for a while, or maybe they're embarking on something brand new and they're not sure what to do, almost always, like a lot of people just tend to just go straight to cardio and like doing a lot of running or something. And it's not that running is bad necessarily, especially if you enjoy it, but if we are trying to build muscle and lose fat, then constant cardio is not the thing that we need to be doing. And I've had to change my thinking over the years with this. You know, I've been in fitness my entire life. When I was a little kid, my dad would take us with him to the gym and we would play on the machines. And so we were exposed to fitness all the time. When I got into high school, I played, you know, all the sports I had access to, and I was really skinny, so I wanted to put on muscle and started lifting weights. And then when I got into the military out of high school, I really, you know, became a gym rat, you know, because I just got addicted to putting on muscle and getting strong. And I read all the popular magazines at the time, like Men's Health, Muscle and Fitness, Flex Magazine, and things like that. And, you know, throughout that entire process, I'm probably spending just as much time doing cardio as I am training and doing weights and stuff like that, because you think that's the thing to do, right? Finish up your workout with some cardio to burn some extra calories. Then I got into West Point and I went through all the nutrition and fitness curriculum they had up there. I got trained as an Army Master Fitness Trainer, which meant I could train military units based on mission priorities. Got out of the military, went through a bunch of personal training certifications. I think the most prestigious at the time was National Academy of Sports Medicine. And then since then I've done like, you know, I've progressed into this ancestral health, holistic health, functional movement realm, natural movement realm. And that's where my thinking really started to change. You know, I got involved in the CrossFitish stuff with Colby. And by the way, you know, a lot of my thinking around this is confirmed, and I learned a lot from Colby. So, so my point here is that I've been through a lot and I've had to change my thinking. I went through my years of, you know, lifting weights and doing a lot of cardio. Then I get into the ancestral, functional, natural movement, CrossFitish realm, and I realized cardio is probably not the best use of your time, but I still had this mentality of, the more that you can do, the better. So for years, we were doing 2-a-days. We'd do some brutal strength training cycles and then do skill work. And we did a lot of the Metcons that would just kill you and you'd be rolling on the floor dying. Like we'd do that like as many times as we could, because we felt like the more we train, the better we get, the stronger we get, right? And now I've come to this realization, and a lot of us have, and all the thought leaders in the holistic functional world and ancestral health world would agree that you really only need a dedicated hour of deliberate, relatively intense exercise or fitness at the most. And you also want to just be active all the time, most of the time. And this whole idea around a bunch of cardio isn't going to contribute to the goals that we want. So I think the reason that most of us are going to work out is because we want to build muscle and lose fat, and it can certainly help with that. But I think that we should change our thinking about what fitness should be doing for us, because if we can change our perception of what it's doing, then we're going to be focusing on the right things, and it's still going to give us what we want as far as the musculature and the shaping of the body and things like that. So the reason most of us exercise is to build muscle and burn fat. The reason we should be exercising is to improve capabilities and functionality and preparedness, which is going to imply a certain amount of muscle to fat ratio, and it's going to be doing it in the right way. So think about if you can move your own body weight, and if you can lift heavy things, and if you can carry heavy weight, and if you can do all these different various activities, your body is going to look the way that you want, because in order to be able to do all those things, you have to have a certain amount of muscle. You have to have a certain amount of muscle to fat ratio. So if we can change our perception to focus on the right movements and get out of the mindset that we need to do extra exercise to burn more calories, that's going to be a big step in the right direction. So fitness builds and shapes the body by prioritizing body composition and distribution, right? So when I exercise, I'm forcing some adaptation. And so when I consume food, then my body's going to prioritize where those nutrients go to help repair and build muscle and strengthen bones and tendons and ligaments and things like that. That's how it contributes to body composition, but it's not burning fat. The fat burning or the fat loss part of it is going to be more nutrition based than anything else. So let's start with, I guess we've already started, but let's get into debunking the idea that cardio burns calories. We've got a couple interesting models here. If you're a part of Superhumans United, then we're going to have all this listed out as courses and modules, and all the references and science and articles and things will be linked in there. But there's what is known as the compensation model. And the compensation model basically says that, first of all, when you exercise, you don't burn that much more calories or use that much more energy than when you're not exercising. Your energy is just diverted in different ways. You do use a little bit more energy, but the compensation model says that that energy is offset or compensated at an unconscious and conscious level by the way that you move and the way that you eat following exercise. Okay, so the more that you exercise, the more that you unconsciously and consciously compensate by being less active. Okay, so think about it. When I do some intense training sessions, then at an unconscious level, my body is going to make me tired and I'm not going to want to do as much. And we've all been there, right? But at a conscious level, I also kind of reward myself with relaxation, right? If I have some brutal training sessions or a brutal training week, I am going to compensate my energy expenditure by relaxing more at an unconscious and conscious level, okay? But we do the same thing with food. So again, the increase in energy expenditure is not that much, but it's offset by this compensation. So the more you exercise, the more you unconsciously and consciously compensate by eating more. All right, so think about it again. If I do some intense training sessions, then unconsciously my body responds by making me hungrier. And consciously, I justify and rationalize eating things that I might not eat normally, or eating more of things I wouldn't eat so much of, as a reward for this intense training. And we've all been there and done that as well, right? So the point here is that even if I am burning a little bit more energy, when I exercise, I am unconsciously and consciously compensating by the way that I behave and the way that I eat afterwards, okay? Now, another interesting model is this model called the constrained model of energy expenditure. And basically this model says that when you measure the overall metabolic activity and energy expenditure of most human beings, no matter where they are on the planet, they're going to have about the same energy expenditure if they're incorporating moderate exercise, and anything above moderate exercise is not going to contribute to more calories. You're just using energy from different places in the body. So there's a research paper titled Constrained Total Energy Expenditure and Metabolic Adaptation to Physical Activity in Adult Humans, where these researchers studied different populations. They studied some modern populations, they studied some ancestral populations, some primitive populations, some hunter-gatherer populations, and they measured their overall metabolic energy expenditure using some very accurate tools. And they came to the conclusion that everybody's burning about the same amount of energy in a day. But what's different is where the energy gets burnt from, or where the energy gets diverted to, or something along those lines. So the brain requires a ton of energy. In fact, it's the most metabolically dependent or demanding organ of the body, all right? It actually uses more energy than working out does. And then we have vital functions that require a lot of energy, that is a constant non-stop energy drain. And then we have recovery and adaptation. You know, when you sleep, that is a very energy dependent process because you have a lot of healing and recuperation that goes into that. And then you have things like fitness, which is kind of like a voluntary energy expenditure, and you have stress, which requires a lot of energy. So you might think to yourself, well, how is it possible that a hunter-gatherer that's on their feet all day out there hunting and moving is burning the same amount of energy in a day as someone sitting in a computer, you know, working on work that's related to a computer, right? So if I am sitting here working really intense with my brain, then that drains my body of energy because the brain is so energy dependent. And we know that, we realize that, we experience that because when we have really intense work days, we come away from that exhausted. And when I'm stressed out all the time, which a lot of us are, like we have modern stresses, you know, finances, relationships, pandemics, you know, I mean, we have a lot of social media, we have a lot of stresses in this modern world that we didn't have from a primitive perspective, right? So as I'm stressed out a lot, that also uses a lot of energy, and we experience that because we're fatigued and drained when we're stressed out a lot. Now I compare that to someone who's out in the bush, you know, spending a lot of time on their feet hunting and gathering. They're not using their brain the way that we are, and they're not stressing out the way that we are. So the energy is being diverted to different places. And the point here is that the more that I work out, if the overall energy expenditure I have in a day is going to be the same no matter what, or about the same, it's not the more that I work out, the more calories I burn. It's the more that I work out, the more that I'm pulling energy away from possibly vital functions and brain function and recovery and adaptation. And so I just want to be aware of the fact that, like, I probably only want to divert a certain deliberate, intense amount of energy towards working out. And then I want to allow the body to use energy the way that it needs to for all these other vital functions, something along those lines, okay? So if we try to combine those two models together, then we can kind of see that exercising more is not the answer because we compensate with the way that we move and the way that we eat. And exercising more is not beneficial because it's pulling energy away from other vital functions. So fitness does not burn calories. Our overall metabolic rate on any given day is going to be about the same. Fitness should contribute to functionality and capabilities and preparedness. And fitness strengthens the body. It helps to build muscle and strengthen bones and organs and systems. And it does strengthen efficiencies of nutrient delivery and toxin removal and organ function. And it does enhance metabolic flexibility, meaning that it helps train the body to use a lot of different energy sources, body fat sources, internal energy creation methods, you know, creating energy from glucose, from gluconeogenesis, from fatty acids, from ketones. You know, it gets really good at creating energy in a lot of different ways, but it doesn't really contribute to a lot of fat loss. It contributes to the ability to use fat for fuel. And it does help with body composition in that it prioritizes where the nutrients go when you train. So when you train hard and you train for strength and you train for functionality, then those nutrients are going to be diverted to the places that they need to build and repair muscle and ligaments and bones and tissues and things like that. So in that sense, it does help to build a beautiful body, and then maybe that muscle offsets the body fat that we have. But like we said before, you know, the body fat is really a result of the way that you eat, you know, and training the body how to use fat for fuel through all the different things that we learned through real food nutrition. Okay, so if you had to piece together an ideal workout program, it would be very varied, based on functional movements. It would have like a lot of strength stuff in it. It would have gymnastics and really just building someone that's very, very capable. But starting out, let's just maybe understand how we prioritize what to do and how often, okay? So how much energy and time should we devote to fitness? You know, well, a dedicated workout, we're saying like an hour of power. But I'd say let's start by addressing what should be the foundation of our fitness or exercise or movement program. And that would be constant low-level activity, moving frequently all day, every day, and changing positions often, okay? So, you know, we've all heard about the detriments of sitting all the time. There's also detriments to standing all the time. There's detriments to staying in one position all the time. And so ideally what you're doing all day, every day is you're taking constant breaks throughout the day to move and constantly change positions, all right? So this is going to facilitate all kinds of great things because you're constantly teaching your body how to tap into fat stores for energy because of the movement. You're taking breaks away from the work and the computer, so you're taking energy away from that really brain and stress intensive stuff that you're doing. It helps you refresh your mind. It helps you refresh your spirit and your motivation. If you walk or do a little bit of movement after eating, it helps to normalize your blood sugar levels. So every time we eat, we have a spike in blood sugar. And sometimes it may take a while for insulin to dissipate that signal of blood sugar from the system. But if I get up and I move immediately after I eat, then I automatically pull that excess glucose from the bloodstream and use it for energy. So I think walking for like 10 to 30 minutes after eating a meal is like freaking just one of the best things that you can do for your health. So my point here is one of the best places that we can start to facilitate awesome health is going to be constant activity, moving frequently, and constantly thinking about changing positions often. So you want to do things like, I consider walking being changing positions, right? If I take a break and I just go for a walk, that's a big win. But we can also do things like stretching, practicing functional movements and positions, getting to the bottom of a squat, touching our toes. I do this total body thing where I start at the top and I work my way down. I try to do little arm pulses and arm raises, and I'll do some bent over rows with no weight. I'll do some good morning, some deadlifts, touch my toes, do some squats. There's all kinds of different things we can do. We can get on the floor, hold a plank, do some cobras, do some yoga poses and things like that. But the bottom line here is that we want to have this mentality of constant movement and constant changing positions all day, every day. And this does not count as working out. This is not intense. This is just staying active all the time. And again, this is going to keep us from being in these rigid positions all the time. It's going to help us take breaks from work, takes breaks from brain activity and stress. And it's also going to help us manage our blood sugar levels and tap into fat stores for fuel. So just moving all the time is going to be like the biggest foundation, the biggest win that we can do. The next level of this pyramid would be training each body part 1 to 2 times per week. And ideally, this is something that's building skills and strengths and muscles and capacities and preparedness, right? Because you want your exercise to facilitate the ability to do things, okay? So we're talking about short, deliberate, intense, functional movements using weights, using resistance, using body weight. That'd probably be a really good place to start actually, is just using your own body weight and mastering things like the plank and the sit-up and the push-up and the pull-up, and then eventually moving into weighted movements and things like that, right? So training, intensely training, or deliberately and intentionally and functionally training the body 1 to 2 times a week. And you could do that with a total, if you're limited on time, you could do like a total body workout 2 days a week. That'd be twice a week, training every body part twice a week, right? Or you could do the traditional split thing where you're doing like, upper body one day, lower body the other day, or chest and tris and back and bis and legs or something along those lines. So then you'd be having like maybe 4 days of deliberate activity in there. But no matter how you do it, we just want to make sure that we're spending no more than, I'd say maybe 4 or 5 days training deliberately and intensely and functionally, and making sure that it's contributing to some kind of general preparedness, okay? So, and then finally, we'd want to add to this a sprint session once a week. All right, so sprint session ideally is going to be running sprinting, because running is primordial, it's ancestral, it forces all kinds of beneficial adaptations in the body because you're resisting your own body weight, and then your body gets this idea that, okay, I need to make the body, leaner or look a certain way or strengthen certain things in order to be able to move this body in this way. But you can also use, other things that contribute. What you want with a sprint session is you want maximum effort, the ability to contribute maximum effort for short periods of time. So we're looking for, maybe 5 to 10 sprints in duration of maybe 10 to 30 seconds at the most. All right, so all out 10 to 30 seconds, 5 to 10 repetitions of that. And again, ideally that would be running, sprinting. But if that's not in your wheelhouse or you're not comfortable with it, it could be a salt bike, it could be airdyne, it could be a rower, it could be anything that allows you to achieve that maximum effort for 10 to 30 seconds. All right, and then finally, we just have to acknowledge that it's extremely important to have rest and recovery. So we'd say rest and recovery, a minimum of 2 days every week where you're not doing any intense training, but you still have that foundation of constant movement, low-level activity, changing positions all the time. Okay, so I think that's super solid. I think most people in this functional, natural movement, ancestral health realm would agree with that. This kind of mirrors some of the things that we learned from our primal health coaching and CrossFit methodologies and natural movement methodologies. And I think it's something that all of us can achieve. So now if we're starting out and we don't have an exercise program in place, or this is kind of new information, then I'd say just starting out walking a couple of times a day and after meals would be a huge win. So again, thinking about moving all the time, getting up in the morning and walking on an empty stomach helps reinforce the signal of fat for fuel. It's a great way to start the day. You can get a little thinking time in, some own mind time. I think that's super, super powerful. And again, it's really beneficial to get a little movement in after your meals. So if you're starting out, walking in the morning, walking in the evening, walking after meals would be a really big win. The next thing that you could do is, especially if you're limited on time. So I had a client here the other day that wants to exercise. He tries to make it to the gym. So hard to do because he's got a newborn baby and he's got a family. And I was like, dude, all you got to do is, because he's taking breaks throughout the day to do little things like go outside and walk a little bit and get some sun. I was like, why don't you just take breaks throughout the day and do some deliberate, intense functional movements, do a little bit of training. And like the light bulb went off and he's like, man, I can do that with my kids sitting right there. I was like, yeah, absolutely. So the next thing that you could do is just add functional movements in throughout the day. And maybe you have 4 days a week or 3 days a week that it's your functional movement days, and those movements are going to be with a little bit more deliberateness and a little bit more intensity. And you're just taking breaks throughout the day to do some push-ups or your modification for push-ups, some pull-ups or your modification for pull-ups, some sit-ups, some plank holds. If you got some weights and some dumbbells or some kettlebells, you could do some different things with those, right? So it doesn't even have to be a dedicated workout where you're going to a gym or paying a gym membership. I think that would be a huge win for a lot of us. The next thing that you could do, the next level, would be a dedicated workout. And if time is limited, you could do total body workout a couple times a week. That way you're not forcing yourself to go to the gym a lot. And then on top of all those things, just throw in some sprints. Experiment with sprints, maybe get some professional coaching so you have some running technique down. But just something that you're contributing an all-out effort, 10 to 30 seconds at a time. The way that I get mine in is usually when we're at the dog park, I'll throw in some sprints here and there, and maybe 1 or 2 days a week I try to make sure that I'm kind of trying to go all out, But finding a way to do that fits your schedule and your capacities and capabilities, I think would be great. And then you can always join a gym. I love this gym that I'm a part of here at the CrossFit Combine because I don't have to think about all this stuff. All I have to do is just show up, go to the group classes, and my biggest struggle is making myself take a couple of days off without intense training, okay? But, if you can find a good functional fitness, CrossFit-ish kind of gym, I would feel them out. Some are a little bit, I think, a lot of us think too intense for a lot of people, and they have too much intensity too often, so you got to find a place that has a really good balance. If you're here in Vegas, I would check out the CrossFit Combine, but you can just go and just try some different gyms out. But I think this gives you a really good little template, okay? So we have what we call our Fitness Foundations Pyramid, where we have all this information listed out. We have resources, references, scientific papers, blog posts, PDFs, some example workouts and things, movements that you need to focus on. All of this is inside our community, Superhumans United, at community.superhumantransformation.com. More than likely, depending on when you watch this, there's probably going to be a free trial associated when you first come in. Anywhere from 7 days to 30 days. So if you want to get these materials and check it out, you can get in there with a free trial, cancel anytime. Most people stay in it because it's freaking amazing. But I hope this stuff was useful, and if you have any questions, comments, feedback, anything that can make this information better, please send it my way, because we are here to help and to heal and to support. And y'all make it a great day. Keep it real and try to move all the time. All right?